It's that time of year when Nasscom takes a look at the startup ecosystem. And joining us, Debjani Ghosh, President of Nasscom. The year gone by, the highlights as you see it. Is it still a healthy place for startups?
It's more healthy. It's much more healthy than what it used to be, and the changes that we're seeing, the trends that we're seeing are absolutely in the right direction towards building a sustainable ecosystem. So that's why it's tremendously positive. While the overall ecosystem has grown, it's roughly around 7,200 to 7,700 strong ecosystem, third largest base. But what we are seeing is, one, the growth in unicorns, right? India has a total of 18, of which 8 happened last year.
In the last year alone. So this is, of course, the biggest
last year. So last 2 years before that, 2017 and 2016, the total number of new unicorns were 3. So just last year you saw 8. And more interestingly, the time to unicorn on average has gone down to around 5 to 6 years for India, and we are pretty much catching up with China, because China is around 4 to 5 years, and we are next with 5 to 7 years, which is tremendously healthy, because what it's telling you is there's market, there's the right kind of funding coming in, and of course the right kind of entrepreneurs with the right kind of products. So I think it's playing out tremendously well. The other big one for us was the growth in advanced tech startups, or what we call deep tech startups, which I think are critical for India. While the overall startup ecosystem grew at around 12%, the deep tech startup ecosystem grew 50%. Within that, what we saw is that the focus areas or the key drivers were AI, analytics, IoT. Again, these are critical areas for India. They can have the maximum impact for India, not only in terms of creating the products and solutions needed for India, but also in terms of job creation. Right? So,
yeah, this of course is the positive side. There was concern expressed last year also about the fall in seed funding.
Yes.
What's the situation now?
Continues to be a concern. Seed funding has continued to fall. Not a surprise given the way the ecosystem is maturing. And it's pretty normal in this kind of an ecosystem for investor mindset to move towards more of the mature companies, because we have a lot of exciting companies there. So but that said, usually what happens is, in these scenarios, the government steps in with more, it's not just a fund, but a more structured approach to ensure that the seed stage is healthy. The seed stage was also an area where we have to have enough room for failure and fail fast, right? So you have to create an ecosystem where people can come in, experiment, fail, come up with the next idea, etc. And I think that's where we are seeing the investors slowly moving more towards the mature ecosystem, and I think this is where government has to step in, and even industry.
All right, so government industry to play a bigger role in funding and mentoring then, in order to get the startups, and so that the entrepreneurs don't get burnt too badly themselves.
You are allowed. I mean, see, in India has to build innovation like anything else, the capacity to innovate, and you have to create that platform for people to innovate without fear.
That definitely has to be there. You mentioned employment also. Employment generation in a time when that is really a big concern across the board. Has the startup ecosystem helped with employment generation?
Absolutely. Our research shows around 40,000 direct jobs created last year within the startup ecosystem. The total job seen right now is around 1.6 to 1.7 lakhs within the startup ecosystem, which is great given that the ecosystem has picked up momentum only in the last few years. More importantly, what we are seeing is for every direct job, there's roughly a 2.5x accelerator for indirect job creation. So I think it's in the right direction again.
When it comes to women entrepreneurs, the figures last year were also a concern. Has it improved?
It has improved. So from 11%, it's moved up to 14%. So I'll take that. It's absolutely the right direction. The movement's in the right direction. Can it move faster? Can it be bigger? Absolutely. And I think that's what the focus is on. So yes, we are moving in the right direction. We are also seeing that women startups in India are no more limited to just what used to be known as women areas, and I have no idea what that means. But people used to think that women will only play in retail maybe, or cosmetics or whatever nonsense. We are seeing some absolutely brilliant women in deep tech. We are seeing women in B2B. So I think those are all the right trends.
Now, of course, Bengaluru stays ahead, the national capital region, Delhi, Mumbai. We had spoken earlier last year as well of a growth in smaller towns, actually seeing lots of startups.
Absolutely, and that has grown. So last year, I think the share of smaller towns, tier 2, tier 3 was 35%, if I'm not wrong. This year, it's gone up to 40%. And Kochi, Indore, we're seeing a lot of interesting new hubs being created.
And finally, you did mention, of course, greater support, perhaps financial and mentoring as well for startups from the government. Anything else you'd like the government to do to help the startup industry?
Buy from startups. I think that's my biggest ask to government is more than funding, more than giving them space. If there's one thing you can do for startups is to actually buy from them, open up the market for them. That will be the best thing that anyone can do for the startup ecosystem.
Thank you so much. There was the president of Nasscom. Startup industry in India healthy, but of course there's always scope for improvement. With Govind Murthy, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.